Sorry about the abrupt cutoff. Having some technical problems. I think I left off there in making a point about perhaps what Socrates meant about admitting that he was partisan. That is, that he admits that he is not completely neutral, and how could he be completely neutral in this matter? He's about to die, and he's making arguments about the immortality of the soul. So what he's saying is that he has, he has a really important stake here. That is, the philosopher is supposed to be non-partisan. The philosopher is only supposed to care about the truth, and I think that deep down, Socrates, that is his real position. He only cares about the truth. But what he's acknowledging, and he says to himself, is the only thing that separates me from your typical sophistic arguer is that Socrates, is not trying really to convince anyone else that he's right. He's trying to convince himself that he's right. And who could blame him in this situation? So it's an important moment to note, because what it reminds us is that this argument is not purely abstract. It's a living thing, and there's something at stake here. The second little thing that I'd like to point out is something on page 82, which is, I think, one of those poignant moments in all of the Platonic dialogue. And this is when Phaedo breaks off the narration. He's actually talking to Echecrates. And he says at the top of page 82, he says, "Often, Echecrates, as I have admired Socrates, I never admired him more than at that moment." That at that moment where Socrates, when all the air is gone out of the room because of the seeming convincingness of the arguments of Simmias and Cebes against the immortality of the soul, especially this harmony argument, so Socrates has the ability not only to lift himself up, but to lift everyone else up, to lift their moods and to make them re-engage in argument when seemingly all is lost. And then he says something a little below that. He says to Echecrates, "You shall hear, for I was close to him on his right hand, seated on a sort of stool, and he on a couch, which was a good deal higher. Now, he had a way of playing with my hair, and then he smoothed my head and pressed the hair upon my neck and said, 'Tomorrow, Phaedo, I suppose that these fair locks of yours will be severed. That is, I suppose that tomorrow you'll cut your hair in mourning for me, your friend.'" I'm not an expert on how the Greeks mourned their friends or family, but I guess it was the custom to cut your hair short, to shave your head, basically. Your beautiful hair, and the Greeks were very concerned with their appearance, so it was something of a personal sacrifice in honor of your friends and to show that you were devastated, and I don't know, it's just a really great moment between them. So what Socrates has to do, though, is to actually refute the argument. He can't just say it's bad for us to think that the soul is not immortal. He's actually got to come up with the goods. He's got to come up with an argument. And that argument begins, let's see, top of page 85. And now let us proceed. And what does Socrates do? Just to characterize that argument, read it through, read it carefully, but what's the essence of it? If we turn to page 88, he makes some, I think, really strong points. What he says about the analogy of harmony with a musical instrument and the soul with the body actually breaks down at a certain point. Because what he points out is that the harmony can't be at variance with the instrument. That is, the harmony can't oppose the instrument. The harmony is dependent upon and determined by the strings, the length of the strings, and how they're plucked and things like that. But is the relationship between the soul and the body like that? Well, one of the things that the soul can do with regard to the body is say no. About the middle of page 88, he says, "And is the soul in agreement with the affections of the body, or is she at variance with them? For example, when the body is hot and thirsty, does not the soul incline us against drinking? And when the body is hungry, against eating? And this is only one instance out of 10,000 of the opposition of the soul to the things of the body." But we have already acknowledged that the soul, being a harmony, can never utter a note at variance with the tensions and relaxations and vibrations and other affections of the strings out of which she is composed. She can only follow. She cannot lead them. And yet, do we not now discover the soul to be doing the exact opposite, leading the elements of which she is believed to be composed? That is, one of the things about the soul, the mind, the conscious mind, in its relationship with the body, is that it does not have to follow the desires of the body. It doesn't have to follow the inclinations of the body. It can say no. And in fact, if we look at the overall Platonic corpus of the body of work that Plato left behind, in other dialogues, that's a very, very strong element. For instance, in Plato's Republic, that the soul should lead the body, that the soul should lead the desires, and it shouldn't be the other way around. And whether or not that's true, it's certainly true that there's a part of us that can say no to desire. I think it's a very, actually, pretty strong point on the part of Socrates. That is that if we consider the soul to be a kind of a harmony that's produced by the living body, now how do we account for the fact that the soul, at least the mind, or the intellect, or the conscious mind, can actually be in opposition with the body, can actually want different things and have different values? Now, what I think this goes to is towards a position that would say that the soul does have an independence of the body, that the soul is actually not like a harmony produced by the body, but is rather, and this is a point he goes back to again and again, something that's independent of the body, at least something that seems at points to have a kind of life of its own, or an existence which is not totally determined. So that is, I think, his best argument against the objections that Simmias and Siege, and especially the harmony argument, make towards the immortality of the soul.